In every sprawling mansion, there are moments when luxury and silence collide into a tempest, revealing wounds no wealth can heal. On a storm-tossed afternoon, Richard Blackwood's home, usually a shrine to order and opulence, became a theater of emotions so raw they cut through its polished marble floors. Richard, a billionaire hardened by years of negotiation and relentless ambition, paced the echoing corridors. Yet, nothing in his vast empire could prepare him for the heartbreak he witnessed when he entered the living room, drawn by the unfamiliar sound of music and laughter. Sophia, his only daughter, was the light of the mansion despite her tragedy. 8 years old, with bright blue eyes that had lost their spark after the devastating accident, she now sat in a wheelchair at the center of the room. For months she had withdrawn into silence, shuttered behind invisible walls. But today, this day, her smile returned, lighting her pale face like dawn breaking after endless night. Accompanying her was Andre Silva, the family's driver, a man whose presence was gentle yet quietly dignified. His skin, a deep Brazilian bronze, glowed in the afternoon light as he danced with Sophia, the energy of his heritage threading through every graceful movement. Music flowed from his phone, a lively Brazilian melody filling the air with warmth and possibility. Andre led Sophia gently, his hand steady and respectful, guiding her through the motions. Sophia, caught in this moment of innocence and hope, clapped her hands and laughed freely. The sparkle in her gaze was something Richard hadn't seen since tragedy had stolen his wife and crippled his little girl. But thunderous rage surged within Richard's heart. The sight of their dance, his driver, not a therapist, not a doctor, but a simple employee, knocked against the walls he had built to shield his daughter from further pain and from those he did not trust. Richard's fists clenched so tightly, the knuckles blanched white. "Stop that, immediately!" His words exploded across the room, harsh, unyielding, a command that brooked no argument. The music stumbled as Andre halted, instantly releasing Sophia's hand. The happiness on her face went out like a flame snuffed by wind. Confusion and fear crept in their place, casting shadows. Andre raised his hands in a pacifying gesture, eyes calm but glimmering with something deeper, a wisdom earned through hardship. "Mr. Blackwood, I can explain." Andre's voice was soft, threaded with an accent Richard had always ignored, but today it seemed to reverberate with dignity and sorrow. Richard, however, was lost in his own storm. "Explain?" he bit off, his tone knife sharp. "You were hired to drive, not to whatever this is." His gesture flailed toward Andre's phone, still playing music. "Turn that thing off, now!" Andre complied, pausing the song, and in the silence that followed, the mansion seemed to shrink around them. Sophia's tears spilled without a sound, the pain in her small body visible to Richard for the first time. He knelt by her wheelchair, trying to comfort her with words that felt empty, even to himself. The walls that he had built with intention, to control, to protect, now started closing in on him, squeezing tight with regret and confusion. Richard looked at both Andre and Sophia, torn between anger, pride, and a growing unfamiliar ache in his heart. He wondered what invisible threshold had been crossed in that moment, if the boundaries he enforced were now causing more harm than good, if he was losing sight of what it meant to protect, to heal. The storm outside subsided, but the tempest within the mansion had only begun. Richard's rigid control over his world was reflected in every aspect of his life, from the gleaming cars parked in his driveway to the cold, methodical way he ran his household. But no degree of order could mend the shattered heart of his daughter, or fill the abyss left by the accident 6 months before. A moment that had not just taken Elena, his beloved wife, but had confined Sophia to a life she could not escape despite all their resources. When Richard demanded Andre pack his things and leave, he did so with the sharp finality learned through years of business. Yet the act felt hollow, even as the words left his lips. Andre nodded, his acceptance serene, almost as if he carried an understanding Richard couldn't access. He turned to Sophia one last time, his expression gentle and sorrowful. "Remember what we talked about with butterflies, little one. Some fly differently, but they still fly." The words hung in the air, a promise and a lesson wrapped in tenderness. And I apologize to the author for interrupting this story. I would be very pleased if my listener would like, subscribe, and leave their thoughts on this story in the comments. I won't delay you any longer. Enjoy. Richard expected desperation or protest from Andre, but instead was unsettled by his calm. Andre's movements were neither hurried nor fearful. They held a quiet dignity that stuck with Richard long after he had left the room. Sophia, meanwhile, dissolved into silent sobs, her fragile body trembling as she whispered, "Why did you send him away? He made me feel normal again." Her voice broke the last defenses Richard held, exposing the emptiness beneath his choices. For half a year, he had thrown money at Sophia's pain, hiring acclaimed therapists and specialists from around the world, all to no avail. None had accomplished what Andre had in mere weeks, evoking laughter, sparking hope, making Sophia feel like herself again. The night descended on the mansion, bringing a weight Richard struggled to carry. He paced his office, haunted by the memory of Sophia's smile, now gone, and the unidentifiable tightness in his chest. Had he made a grave mistake? Was his distrust, his insistence on order and tradition, blinding him to the healing Sophia truly needed? The answer was drowned out by the quiet of Sophia's room, once filled with childish dreams, now echoing her muffled sobs and the cold absence of her driver-turned-friend. As hours passed, Richard replayed every moment of the day, searching for justification or comfort, but finding only regret. With Andre gone, the mansion resumed its routine. Quiet, cold and lifeless as before. Everyone returned to their assigned roles, yet nothing felt right. The music Sophia loved was silenced, and so was the hope Andre had kindled. 3 days slipped by, each one darker than the last. Richard buried himself deeper in work, telling himself sternly that he had acted as any protective father would have. But Sophia resisted every attempt at normalcy. She refused meals, ignored her counselors, and clung to the fantasy that Andre might return. Each day, she asked, "Daddy, why isn't Andre coming back?" Richard met her with empty reassurances, but his own heart grew heavier, weighed down by the possibility that he had not just lost a trusted employee, but had sent away the only healer his daughter had truly known since Elena's passing. The cold, sterile comfort of the mansion became a prison for father and daughter alike. Across town, separated by worlds and social boundaries, Andre Silva sat at a small kitchen table in a modest apartment, a stark contrast to the grand home he had left behind. The apartment was neat, but humble, the kind of space that whispered of sacrifices and stories untold. Andre's fingers moved quickly across the laptop keyboard, composing and responding to emails in 3 languages: English, French, Portuguese. The correspondence betrayed a level of erudition far above what Richard suspected of a simple driver. A phone call interrupted his work, and Andre answered in precise French. "Dr. Silva?" The caller's voice was formal, the matter professional, a university confirming a lecture on neuroplasticity. Andre deferred, explaining he needed to delay the commitment. "I have a special case that requires attention." All the while, his eyes lingered on a photograph of Sophia, taken discreetly during their dance sessions. Had Richard bothered with a deeper background check, he would have discovered Andre's impressive history. A PhD in neuroscience from Sorbonne, a specialization in music and movement therapy, tailored to children recovering from neurological trauma. Andre was no ordinary employee. He had left a promising academic career in Paris, retreating from the spotlight after a personal tragedy rendered his research work an echo of painful memories. Yet, there was another layer, one invisible even to professional investigators. Andre's connection to the Blackwood family was more profound than chance. Years ago, he had not only known Elena Blackwood, but also been her treating physician during a difficult period in Paris. The threads linking Andre to Sophia and Richard stretched back through time, woven by fate and loss. Back in the mansion, Richard's struggle with Sophia grew desperate. Despite repeated attempts, her spirits withered further. She refused food, rejected physiotherapy, and sobbed every time she heard a car, believing Andre might return. Richard's rage and discomfort at Andre's calm dismissal now mutated into bafflement and guilt. One day, his assistant James approached him, anxiety etched in his features. "Mr. Blackwood, something strange has come to light regarding the driver you fired." James presented facts Richard hadn't asked for. Andre did not protest his dismissal, nor ask for references. Instead, his academic background was spotless, multilingual, and marked by years working with special needs children in prestigious European hospitals. Richard's mind reeled. Why had someone with such skills accepted the role of a driver? Why had Andre entered their lives just when Sophia's need was greatest? The pieces did not fit, and Richard realized he had made assumptions that may have cost him dearly. That afternoon, Richard returned home to find Sophia whispering at her bedroom window. When asked, she replied, "The butterflies. Andre taught me some fly differently, but they still fly. Like me." The phrase stabbed at Richard's heart, confronting him with the gentle wisdom Andre had offered and the blind arrogance with which he had rejected it. Late that night, searching the barrage for a tangible connection to the man he hardly knew, Richard discovered a leather folder left behind in Andre's car. Expecting personal notes, he found instead research articles on infantile paralysis, diagrams for music therapy, and a meticulously prepared treatment plan adapted for Sophia's initials. The evidence was overwhelming. Andre understood Sophia's condition in ways the world's top specialists had not. At the folder's bottom hid a faded photograph. Elena in a hospital bed, Andre beside her, both smiling with hope. The date was 6 years prior, the hospital Parisian. A handwritten note on the back sealed the truth. Dr. Andre Silva, pediatric neurological trauma specialist, treatment of Elena Blackwood. Richard's hands shook. The implications unraveled everything. Andre was not a stranger, not an opportunist. He had been Elena's healer, and perhaps the family's silent guardian all along. The following morning, Richard battled the burden of realization. He failed to concentrate during meetings, every spreadsheet blurred beneath the weight of Andre's history, Elena's smiling face from that old photograph, and the aching memory of Sophia's laughter. Gone now, perhaps forever. Refusing to tolerate uncertainty, Richard launched a full investigation. He demanded James coordinate with a top-tier private security firm, intent on unraveling every detail of Andre Silva's life over the past 15 years. "I want every document, every job, every breath he's taken." The urgency puzzled James, but Richard was relentless. The photograph of Elena with Andre felt like a cipher to his past, an omen of fate far more complex than mere coincidence. As Richard's world spun with doubt, Sophia's decline became alarming. She refused meals and company, tears tracing patterns on her pillow as she repeated Andre's name like a prayer. Medical professionals struggled to explain her worsening condition. Dr. Peterson, the trusted pediatrician, suggested Sophia had lost the will to live. Children who survive trauma can become deeply attached to the first person who brings them hope. When that connection is shattered, it can make the pain even more acute. Richard, ever the skeptic, bristled at the implication. But as the agency's report landed, encrypted and exhaustive, He sat alone in his office, each page chiseling away his certainties. Andre's academic journey was detailed. Medical degree from the University of Sao Paulo. Pediatric neurology specialization from France. And 6 years at Necron Fon Malades Hospital, the same Parisian facility where Elena had been treated. But more shocking was Andre's own tragedy. His 5-year-old daughter Luna had perished in a car accident eerily reminiscent of Sophia's fate. Unable to continue in traditional medicine, he dedicated himself to alternative therapies, especially for children scarred by neurological trauma. Andre's published work was renowned. He had achieved global recognition for his methods, music and movement therapy for traumatized children. Newspaper interviews revealed a mission. Andre sought out children burdened like Luna, resolved to give them the second chance life denied his own. His work was more than professional. It was penance. Richard, shaken to his depths, called Andre immediately. The call was answered with a gentle resignation. Andre's instant recognition, "I know you found out who I am," stripped away pretense. Richard, voice trembling, asked why Andre had hidden his identity. Andre answered simply, "Men like you don't hire ex-doctors to drive cars. You want chauffeurs." Sophia needed someone present, without the weight of expectation or suspicion. The honesty landed heavily. Andre recounted how Elena, researching alternative treatments for infantile paralysis, had approached Andre before Sophia's birth. She had discovered a genetic risk and tasked Andre with a promise. If Sophia ever needed help, he would be there. Richard was floored. He scanned Elena's will, finding in overlooked legalese a section requesting Andre's intervention should neurological trauma befall Sophia. His methods may seem unorthodox, but they work where traditional medicine fails. Every harsh word, every act of distrust now haunted Richard. He had fired, dismissed, and humiliated the one man his wife trusted above all. A man who had not only saved her life once, but now carried a promise to save their daughter. Richard, overwhelmed by guilt and the painful clarity of hindsight, canceled all appointments. He instructed James to pursue every lead regarding Elena's connection to Andre, unraveling years of carefully concealed support. Monthly payments to a Parisian clinic where Andre worked, documentation of their ongoing communication. Elena had planned every step, quietly funding the project that could someday save her daughter. James, gently correcting Richard's suspicions, pointed out, "He hasn't been watching, he's been waiting for when he was needed." The arrogance Richard had wielded so fiercely now tasted like ashes. He had exiled the only man uniquely positioned to heal Sophia, driven by a prejudice he barely admitted to himself. Desperate, Richard called Andre again, this time not as a boss, but as a father seeking forgiveness. Andre replied with solemnity, He was no longer an employee to be dismissed or retrieved at whim. "I'm a doctor who made a promise," he said. "If you want my help, you must stop trying to control Sophia's healing. You must participate, and you must apologize, not to me, but to her." The humility required was staggering. For the first time, Richard considered that his best efforts to fix Sophia had missed the deeper truth. She needed healing as much of spirit as of body. He watched a video Andre sent, a recording of Sophia moving her arms with music, her smile radiant as Andre guided her gently. The message with the video: "She recorded this last week when she still believed that you loved her more than your pride." Richard wept, realizing he had not only lost an employee, but his daughter's trust, a wound not healed by apologies or wealth. But somewhere inside, a new resolve began to grow, a readiness to embrace humility, to trust, and to begin anew. Across town, Andre gazed at his own daughter's photograph, whispering to Luna, "One more, my little one. We'll save one more." With trembling hands, Richard took the first real step toward redemption. Not with orders, but with an open heart, determined to restore to Sophia the hope, laughter, and connection he had so gravely endangered. At dawn the next morning, Richard stood at his daughter's door, hovering on the threshold, as nervous as any father facing the consequences of his own pride. The housekeeper, who had worked for the Blackwoods since before Sophia's birth, regarded him with somber eyes. As she brought up a tray, Sophia would refuse. Sophia's room, once a shrine to childish fantasy, with cloud-painted ceilings and paper butterflies suspended on invisible strings, now felt entombed in sadness. Sophia stared out the window, her fragile frame dwarfed by the pink-patterned wheelchair. She gripped one of Andre's origami butterflies, now fraying at the edges, and twisted it between fingers that once danced, but now only trembled. Richard had rehearsed his words for hours, yet when he entered, his practiced apology faltered. He settled at the edge of her bed, racked with anxiety. "Sophia," he said softly, "I made a mistake. I let my fear and anger get in the way, and I took away someone you needed." She didn't look at him. Her silence accused him more than any words could. "I was wrong to send Andre away, and I was wrong to stop your music." A tear ran silently down Sophia's cheek. "He made me laugh again, Daddy." Richard's heart cracked. He reached for her hand, surprised she didn't pull away. "Andre didn't just drive the car, honey. He came here because your mother wanted someone special for you. Someone who could help you." He paused, seeing now the light of hope flickering in Sophia's eyes, cautious, vulnerable. "If you want, we can ask him to come back." "No. We will listen to him. Together." Her response came in a hesitant whisper. "Do you promise?" "I promise," Richard vowed. For the first time since Elena's death, he surrendered the illusion of control, his daunting facade dissolving under Sophia's gaze. Downstairs, Richard called Andre once more, voice stripped of pride. "Come home," Please, Sophia needs you, and so do I. Andre arrived late that afternoon, carrying with him the gentle presence of someone who has mastered both suffering and hope. He entered the mansion as neither a guest nor an employee, but as an essential force of healing, greeted by Sophia's open-armed embrace. Tears glistened in her eyes, and even Richard could not hold back his own as he watched them reunite. The house began to fill once more with traces of music, tentative, as if the walls themselves needed time to trust that joy could live here again. Richard observed not as a distant onlooker, but as an active participant, helping to set up Sophia's therapy space with Andre. For the first time, father and daughter collaborated, measuring, adjusting, and even arguing playfully over where to place the speakers for the best sound. That evening, as Brazilian jazz drifted through the air, Richard watched Sophia learn new movements under Andre's direction. She grinned, struggling to keep the rhythm. But failing didn't matter. What mattered was trying, was dancing again. It dawned on Richard that healing, like music, required both discipline and improvisation. All his plans and strategies had failed because they left no room for the unpredictable magic of connection, or the wisdom of a small girl's laughter, or the humility within a father's regret. As Sophia laughed, spinning in her wheelchair to the cadence of Andre's hands and encouragement, Richard finally allowed hope to unfold in his heart. He had opened the door to healing, but it was Sophia and Andre, together, who would breathe life into that room, note by note. With Andre's return, the Blackwood mansion began to change, not through grand gestures, but through 1,000 subtle shifts. The house, once echoing with loneliness, now resounded with giggles, music, and the clamor of play. For the first time in months, Sophia invited friends over, showing off her dance teacher with pride. The staff, once tiptoeing around grief, now found themselves smiling as they passed rooms where Sophia and Andre tried everything from samba to silly animal imitations. Every window was thrown open, letting in sunlight and the distant scent of rain. Andre methodically rebuilt Sophia's strength and confidence, drawing on every technique honed through years of therapy, and above all, through his own loss. He introduced musical games, rhythm-based exercises, and guided meditative breathing, teaching Sophia not only to move, but to listen to her own body, to celebrate every small victory. Richard watched these routines with new awareness. He learned about neuroplasticity, how music and motion fostered neural recovery. He studied Andre's research late into the night, reading and rereading the line, "Healing is a dance. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow, and sometimes you simply hold your partner through the silence." Sophia's therapists noticed swift, remarkable progress. Her fingers, once limp, now tapped complex patterns on a djembe, between songs. Her legs, though still weakened, no longer trembled in terror when asked to help her stand. Hope surged in her cheeks, coloring her emotions, bright and alive. Deep conversations blossomed between Richard and Andre. They sat beneath the old magnolia in the garden, speaking candidly about Elena, about guilt, and about the ache of losing children. Andre recounted Luna's short life and the vow he had made beside her hospital bed, to seek redemption, not in forgetting, but in choosing to love every wounded child as his own. Richard listened, each word stirring an ache of empathy that had been locked away in his heart for ages. I failed Sophia and her mother because I believed only money and control could fix what was broken, Richard confessed. Andre smiled gently in return. Love is not about fixing, Andre replied, his eyes shimmering. Love is about holding, witnessing, and letting the ones we love become their fullest, even when that means letting go of how we wish things would be. One evening, as the sunset glowed orange through the tall windows, Richard found Sophia teaching Andre to play chess, her laughter cascading through the house. It was the music of a soul restored. Moved, Richard joined them not as a benefactor, but as a beginner, awkward, vulnerable, and willing to be taught. That night, as the mansion glowed with the soft radiance of healing, Richard visited Elena's portrait in the hallway. He laid a hand lightly on the frame. "Thank you," he whispered, finally understanding the depths of her foresight and the wisdom of trusting love over fear. A month after Andre's return, the Blackwood home was a different world. Sophia's calendar bloomed with visits to parks, painting classes, and musical performances. Each outing was a new adventure, Andre guiding her in the art of savoring life as it came, imperfect, unpredictable, but beautiful all the same. Sophia's schoolwork improved, not by pressure or forced effort, but by tying lessons to her passions. Andre taught her fractions through drum rhythms, geography through world music, and even science through nature walks around the garden. Richard began participating too, becoming more than a supervisor. He became her companion. Instead of seeing her wheelchair as a limitation, he began to view it as a vehicle for transformation, a butterfly cocoon that would one day open to reveal new wings. The staff began holding weekly family dinners where laughter rolled across the table, each member contributing a favorite childhood song or joke. Sophia led these dinners, insisting everyone introduce themselves with a dance step or funny sound. Under Andre's guidance, she even choreographed a wheelchair samba, which became the family anthem. The community noticed the change as well. Parents, once whispering about Blackwood's sad little girl, now remarked on her cheerful energy, her courage, and her love of music. Sophia and Andre began leading music and movement workshops for children with special needs at the local community center. Parents, moved by Sophia's progress, started asking Richard for advice, not on doctors or medicine, but on how to help children find hope when all seems lost. Richard, for his part, let go of outward displays of authority. He smiled and danced, made mistakes and learned from them. He told his story to other fathers of pride, loss, humility, and gratitude. The walls of the mansion, once built to keep the world out, were now decorated with posters from Sophia's concerts, paintings from friends, and notes of appreciation from children whose hearts she had touched. On a warm Saturday afternoon, Sophia surprised her father during what she called Family Talent Night. With Andre's help and her friends singing backup, she performed a song she had written herself, a ballad about butterflies who fly differently, but who still manage to soar. Richard, overcome, joined in the final verse, his deep voice harmonizing with Sophia's pure, trembling soprano. Tears of joy flowed freely that night, and when the song faded, Richard realized he was not only witnessing his daughter heal, he was learning, for the first time, how to heal himself. Sophia's progress was not a straight line. Setbacks haunted her, triggering old fears whenever pain spiked or movement failed. But now she was surrounded by a network of unwavering support. Andre remained a steadfast mentor, guiding her through disappointment with the same patience with which he once faced profound grief. Richard, too, learned to accept Sophia's struggles not as failures, but as moments to offer comfort without judgment. One rainy day, Sophia returned from therapy in tears. She had again struggled with a standing exercise, collapsing onto the mat just as everyone clapped for a new boy who had achieved his first step. "I'll never walk again," she sobbed. Richard, watching helplessly, wanted to assure her it would be fine. But Andre intervened gently. "Sometimes butterflies need time in their cocoons," Andre said, sitting beside her on the bedroom floor. "Some of the most beautiful wings come from the longest nights." He handed Sophia a small notebook in which she began to write her feelings: anger, hope, disappointment, dreams. Writing became Sophia's new therapy, and every week she shared parts of it at Andre's community center class. One day, another girl approached and said, "Reading your story helped me not feel so alone." Sophia and Richard began visiting Elena's grave, bringing flowers and sharing news, both joys and setbacks. They laughed about moments Elena would have loved and wept over the ones she was missing. Over time, grief softened, replaced by gratitude for every memory. There were still nights when Richard awoke, heart pounding, haunted by the memory of the accident, the screech of tires, the world collapsing to black. Andre guided him through these moments, teaching him breathing exercises and introducing him to a support group of parents facing similar losses. Gradually, Richard let go of his guilt and replaced it with purpose. He started the Elena Blackwood Foundation, providing scholarships for families needing child trauma therapy. Andre became its co-director, using his expertise and empathy to train a new generation of therapists, building a legacy that stretched far beyond the Blackwood home. For the first time in years, Richard felt hope, not as a fleeting illusion, but as a steady, glowing presence, humming in the laughter of his daughter and in the music echoing from room to room. There came a morning, piercingly bright, when Sophia surprised everyone. With Andre on her left, Richard on her right. She rose shakily from her wheelchair at the center of the garden. Birds scattered from the tall hedges, and the sky seemed to hold its breath. Using a pair of pink and green crutches painted like lollipop sticks, Sophia took 3 halting steps, each one transforming fear into triumph. Richard's jaw trembled, but he did not rush in or try to help. He merely watched, awestruck, as Sophia, through sweat and tears, found the strength to stand tall. Applause erupted from friends and staff alike. But Sophia grinned in delight, not at the achievement, but at the freedom she felt in trying. "Even butterflies learn to leap before they fly," she announced, falling gladly into her father's arms. In the glow of that moment, something irrevocable shifted in Richard's soul. All that had been lost, Elena, his confidence, even Sophia's old life, now seemed less like wounds and more like spaces for new growth. He realized the measure of a father was not in how he protected his child from suffering, but in how he walked beside her, step by uncertain step, into the unknown. The sun set over the garden that night, bathing the world in gold. Andre played Sophia's favorite song. The entire household danced together at last. Beyond the stately gates of the Blackwood mansion, the story of a father, a daughter, and the healer who brought them back to life would be told and retold. For theirs was not only a journey out of tragedy, but a testament to the miracles wrought by humility, courage, and the quiet, insistent music of hope. News of Sophia Blackwood's remarkable progress began to ripple beyond the mansion's walls, stirring curiosity and hope throughout the local community. It wasn't long before journalists, social workers, and even parents facing their own family struggles reached out, eager to know more about the transformation rumored to be occurring behind the estate's ornate gates. What truly fascinated people was not only Sophia's physical recovery, but the emotional metamorphosis that accompanied it. Where once Sophia was described as a withdrawn, tragic figure, now people saw her as radiant. Her courage inspiring children and adults alike. Richard, too, underwent a subtle rebirth. His public appearances grew fewer, but when he did speak, at community meetings, charity events, or when shaking hands with staff around the grounds, his voice carried a warmth and humility previously absent. The story of the silent, grieving billionaire opening his home and heart to healing became a quiet legend, whispered with admiration among neighbors and employees. Meanwhile, Sophia and Andre deepened their bond. Gone was any trace of formality. Andre became Uncle Andre to Sophia, sharing with her stories of Brazil, songs from his childhood, and wisdom earned through both joy and sorrow. Their daily routines blended play, music, and therapy into a seamless journey of discovery. Sometimes they would sit together for hours, painting and swapping tales beneath the blossoming magnolia. It was during these moments that Sophia found her confidence to express ideas and dreams she had long kept buried. Sophia's healing, though, was never a solitary path. She now included her friends, inviting them into the once restricted gardens for music gatherings and storytelling sessions. Children with different abilities, some affected by trauma, some born with unique challenges, found a haven among the flowers and laughter of Blackwood's estate. Andre became their mentor as well, nurturing each child's strengths and teaching them and their families how to celebrate every small step and every new note played. Richard, despite lingering guilt for his earlier errors, began to see the positive impact that vulnerability could bring. Through his daughter's resilience and Andre's guidance, he discovered that real strength lay in openness and trust, not rigid authority. He initiated a scholarship through the Elena Blackwood Foundation for local children needing specialized therapy, inviting Andre to help shape the curriculum and outreach. The mansion, once forbidding and aloof, became the center of a new kind of community, one marked by understanding, compassion, and the collective pursuit of hope. As the seasons began their slow turn, the Blackwood family encountered new tests. Sophia's condition stabilized, but her journey toward full independence continued to be marked by setbacks, some more troubling than others. There were mornings when pain and fatigue made it impossible for her to rise. On those days, old memories of fear and helplessness pressed in like cold fog. Yet, the family was no longer governed by despair. Andre, drawing from his extensive training and profound empathy, crafted each therapy session to accommodate Sophia's moods, allowing sadness its place, but never letting it settle for long. There was always another song to sing, another butterfly to fold. He encouraged Sophia to channel her frustration into art and writing, helping her stitch together her experiences into short poems and stories. Richard, for his part, learned to wait, to comfort without rushing, to let his daughter own her struggles without trying to erase them. It was during one of these low periods, after a particularly exhausting afternoon, that Sophia quietly asked Andre why he stayed, even when things seemed hopeless. Andre took her hands in his own and answered, his voice ripe with emotion, "Because when I look at you, Sophia, I see my daughter's courage. Luna taught me that even if happiness comes only in fragments, those fragments can light up the darkest sky. And when I see you fight, when I see you dream, I know she's somewhere smiling too." Sophia wept openly, comforted by the knowledge that she was not alone in her struggle, that loss and hope, heartbreak and kindness could coexist in each of their hearts. The conversation kindled a new determination in both of them, inspired. Sophia asked to resume physical therapy in the pool, a place she had long feared since her accident. The water became a gentle, safe space, buoying her body and teaching her limbs how to cooperate in unfamiliar ways. Richard joined the sessions, floundering comically at first, but quickly learning to laugh at himself, delighting his daughter with every unsteady splash. The family, once held together by obligation and shared tragedy, now found unity in laughter and mutual respect. They began planning a public event, a butterfly ball, to raise awareness and funds for children with paralysis and trauma. Sophia insisted on being involved in every detail, from invitations to decorations, growing more confident with each responsibility shouldered. Through heartache and healing, the lines between teacher and student, parent and child, patient and healer blurred. Together, they forged a path that honored the past while daring to dream of a brighter future. The butterfly ball became a symbol of resilience, an event conceived not in grandeur, but in the shared desire to celebrate and uplift children facing extraordinary challenges. Sophia, at the helm alongside Andre and her father, insisted that every element of the event reflect the values that had brought her family back from the brink: joy, acceptance, and creativity. For weeks, the mansion buzzed with activity. Staff, volunteers, and classmates bustled through the halls, stringing up handmade butterflies, arranging wildflowers, and folding programs inscribed with poetry written by Sophia and her friends. In the evenings, the garden was illuminated by thousands of paper lanterns, their flickering light reminiscent of hope's enduring glow. The night of the ball arrived, and Sophia, resplendent in a dress the color of new leaves, felt her nerves fluttering like wings. Andre, in a crisp linen suit, gave her an encouraging smile and squeezed her hand. "Tonight, you are the brightest butterfly in the room," he whispered. As guests arrived, they were greeted not with fanfare, but with music. Children on drums, guitars, and violins filling the air with raw, joyous sound. Sophia made her entrance to raucous applause. Leading her classmates in a lively wheelchair dance performance choreographed to a Brazilian folk tune. Each spin and turn celebrated not just her progress, but the courage of every child on the stage. Richard watched from the sidelines, pride and awe mingling with bittersweet memories. He remembered Elena's quiet strength, her faith that love could endure the darkest nights. As Sophia finished her dance, she wheeled herself to the microphone. "In the beginning, I felt broken," she said, her voice quivering but clear. "But because of Andre, because of my dad, and because of all of you, I realized I can still be whole, even if I move differently, even if I cry sometimes. Butterflies fly in their own way, but they're beautiful all the same." There was not a dry eye among the guests. The ball, a whirlwind of color and music, raised more than funds. It created connections among families who had felt invisible in their pain. Friendships blossomed, promises were made, and the Blackwood mansion forever shed its reputation as a monument to tragedy. It became, at least for one shimmering night, a sanctuary of hope. Sophia's rehabilitation continued, now focused as much on emotional resilience as on physical strength. For the first time, Richard allowed himself to rest in the moments between crises, learning to find peace in Sophia's laughter, in Andre's wisdom, and even in his own silence. Sophia, emboldened by her success, began reaching out to other children online, sharing her story through video diaries and blog posts. At first, her words faltered, like Andre reassured her with a hand on her shoulder, reminding her that even imperfect stories held the power to heal. Soon, children from all over sent in their own butterfly stories, tales of fear, hope, and small victories. Sophia replied to each one, determined to become the mentor that Andre had been to her. One afternoon, sitting beneath the magnolia tree, Richard and Andre reflected on failure, not as a sign of weakness, but as a necessary part of transformation. Andre spoke of losing Luna, of the years spent drifting in grief before rediscovering purpose in helping others. Richard, in turn, admitted that opening up had frightened him more than any business risk, but that it was vulnerability, not control, that opened the way for true change. If only the world valued softness the way it values strength, Richard mused. Andre just smiled, watching Sophia twirl beneath the blossoms, her wheelchair decorating the grass with petals. As time passed, admitted that the fierce grip of old regrets loosening. He found new ways to honor Elena's memory, not only through grand gestures, but in the everyday acts of care and gratitude. He began writing letters to Sophia, letters she would one day treasure. And Andre, ever gentle, recognized the time would soon come to step back, to let the family flourish on their own. He confided in Richard, "The best gift of healing is when you are no longer needed, not because the wounds are forgotten, but because strength has grown in their place." The realization was bittersweet for all of them. Yet, it underscored the greatest lesson of their journey, that true healing lies in letting go, walking beside those you love as long as needed, and then standing back as they spread their own wings. With Andre's guidance, Sophia embraced her growing independence. She mastered skills that once seemed unattainable, traveling short distances with canes, composing music that reflected her journey, and even mentoring younger children at the community center. Each accomplishment brought both joy and a poignant sense of farewell, as if the family recognized change arriving on gentle wings. One autumn morning, as gold and scarlet leaves spun in the breeze, Andre sat with Sophia and Richard on the stone steps outside the mansion. He delivered his news with quiet grace. "My time with you has been a blessing," Andre said, voice tinged with gratitude and sadness. "But there are other children who need me now, just as you once did. You're ready to share your light with the world." Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes. "I'll miss you, Uncle Andre," Who will I tell my dreams to? Andre knelt beside her. You'll tell them to yourself first, and then to your father. And whenever you find a child who is sad or scared, you'll share what you've learned. That's what makes a butterfly. Not the ability to fly, but the courage to try. Richard, hand on Sophia's shoulder, nodded. Thank you, Andre, for everything. I couldn't have learned to be her father again without you. With hugs and laughter, tinged of course with the ache of parting, the family said goodbye. Andre left behind not just memories and lessons, but a world transformed by patience, honesty, and love. Sophia and Richard stood together, watching him walk down the long drive, the morning sun catching the autumn leaves. Their journey was far from over, but now it was their turn to dance forward as partners, wiser, stronger, and at last truly unafraid. Andre's departure left a gentle ache, an empty chair in the music room, the quiet gap in morning routines. But both Sophia and her father soon discovered that his legacy was woven into the very fabric of their new lives. The mansion, transformed by hope and the rhythm of healing, kept Andre's spirit alive in every corner. Sophia embraced her role at the community center with new confidence, leading therapy circles for children and even their parents, standing at the front of rooms where she once felt invisible. Richard, too, felt the power of Andre's influence, deepening his own capacity for empathy and humility. Through the Elena Blackwood Foundation, he began working with families from all walks of life, hosting regular gatherings, not just to raise funds, but to build understanding. He was no longer just the benefactor. He listened, offered comfort, and shared his mistakes openly, helping others see that healing was always possible, even when it seemed out of reach. Sophia often recalled Andre's wisdom when faced with challenges, whether frustration over slow progress in physical therapy, the nervous excitement before her first solo music performance, or the bittersweet sense of loss that sometimes visited in the quiet hours. But now she carried, along with her grief and memories, a bedrock of hope. When a friend struggled with their own journey, she would repeat Andre's words. Butterflies fly in their own way, and every flight is beautiful. The mansion remained a hub for art, music, and laughter. Wheelchair dances in the garden became a monthly tradition, and Sophia's video diaries, once hesitant, grew bold and joyful, watched by families around the world. Parents wrote from Brazil, France, and even distant towns across the country. Each letter a testament to the reach of the story that began in heartbreak, but found its wings in kindness. Richard watched his daughter blossom, finally able to believe that the darkness of the past had birthed not only wounds, but the possibility for transformation. Sophia's courage became a beacon that drew new friends, new ideas, and new moments of happiness into their lives. One autumn evening, after a successful butterfly ball, Sophia and Richard sat together beneath the stars. "Do you think Mom would be proud of me?" Sophia asked softly. Richard squeezed her hand, tears brimming in his eyes. "She would be proud of both of us, and of Andre too. All the love she planted, See how it's still growing? Sophia's journey continued to reveal the most complex and beautiful lesson of all: forgiveness. As she grew stronger and as her world expanded, she began to reach out not just to friends and her father, but to the pain that lingered from the accident itself. The Blackwood family had never spoken much about that terrible day, each keeping memories locked tight, afraid even to touch the subject. It was during a school art project on talking to your past self that Sophia realized she had unfinished business. With Andre's departure, she found herself replaying the accident in her mind, tracing every detail: the rain on the windows, the sudden jolt, the last glimpse of her mother's smile. Now, she decided, she would finally say the words that had haunted her since then. She drafted a letter, not to anyone in particular, but to herself, to Elena, and even, in some ways, to the unpredictable world. With her father's gentle encouragement, she read it aloud one evening in the garden. Richard listened, overcome by the mixture of pride and sorrow he felt. In the letter, Sophia forgave the accident for taking her legs and her mother. She forgave herself for surviving. She forgave her father for his anger and mistakes. She even forgave Andre for not being there sooner, understanding now that healing sometimes begins only after the worst has happened. Richard, unable to contain the emotion, wept openly. For the first time, the mansion was free of the heavy silence that had settled after the tragedy. Sophia's act of forgiveness rippled through every room, allowing her and her father to move forward, no longer burdened by what might have been, but buoyed by the possibilities that remained. Forgiveness, they realized, was not an act of forgetting. It was a way of remembering with love, so that the wounds did not define them, but shaped their journey forward. As winter melted into spring, Sophia and Richard began embracing new adventures, honoring both their roots and their newfound wings. Sophia insisted they take a trip to the Brazilian Community Center, where Andre now taught children, wanting to see the place where their healer's journey continued. Together, they traveled, leaving the mansion and their comfort zones behind. The trip was difficult. Travel with a wheelchair required patience and flexibility. But it was precisely this challenge that made the journey so meaningful. Richard found himself tested again and again, negotiating unfamiliar streets, adapting to Sophia's needs with humility, and letting go of preconceived notions about what she and he could achieve. The reunion with Andre was emotional and joyous. Sophia danced with children from the favela, sharing her story in Portuguese with help from Andre's translation. She and Richard attended music classes, joined drumming circles, and even participated in a carnival parade, each step a celebration of difference and resilience. Andre showed them the modest apartment where he lived, the school where he worked, and the children who looked to him for guidance. Richard, seeing firsthand the scope of Andre's influence and compassion, realized how much more there was to do. and resolved to use his resources and knowledge to aid the cause on a global level. The trip ended with a sunset gathering, music ringing through open windows, laughter and tears mingling on everyone's faces. Sophia promised to return, and Andre gave her a new origami butterfly, crafted in brilliant colors. "Remember, you're not alone," Andre whispered. "Every butterfly has 1,000 roots and 1,000 wings." Back home, Sophia transformed. The trip inspired new ambitions: a music therapy program for schools, a network for families with paralyzed children, and a charity drive to collect musical instruments for those in need. With Richard's support and Andre's remote collaboration, Sophia became the youngest ambassador for the Elena Blackwood Foundation's Roots and Wings initiative. Sophia recorded a song entitled "Butterfly Promise," her voice clear and triumphant. Joined by children from every background, some singing from hospital beds, others from wheelchair dance teams, the piece became a viral sensation, used in therapy centers worldwide to show children that beauty could emerge from pain. Richard, too, found new meaning in his work. He devoted less time to financial affairs and more to mentorship, storytelling, and advocacy. The mansion became a hub for creative workshops, resilience seminars, and, above all, the teachings of patience and humility he had learned from Andre and Sophia. On the anniversary of Elena's passing, Sophia, Richard, and the community gathered beneath the magnolia tree for a celebration, not of loss, but of transformation. They sang, danced, and read poetry, honoring the memory as a source of growth rather than just sorrow. Sophia turned to her father at dusk and said, "We're butterflies too, Daddy. Rooted in where we come from, but always flying toward where we need to go." Years passed, but the story of Sophia's healing and the Blackwood family's rebirth continued to inspire. Andre's methods, blending science, music, empathy, and cultural wisdom, became the gold standard in trauma care. Sophia herself, now a young teenager, led countless workshops, painted murals in the hospital where Elena once stayed, and even traveled with her father to international conferences. Richard aged with grace, reshaping his legacy from that of a hard-charging tycoon to a champion for children, families, and the power of love over fear. His mansion no longer felt like a fortress, but a living canvas for every life it touched. Andre sent regular messages and visited when he could. Your bond, though changed by time and distance, remained strong. Whenever Sophia faced a tough moment, she found Andre's origami butterflies, each one a reminder of her courage and the interconnectedness of every achievement, sorrow, and dream. One spring morning, Sophia stood in the garden, breathing in the sweet air. She felt the joy not only of what she could do, but of what she could inspire in others. As a butterfly landed softly on her outstretched hand, a real one, luminous and gentle, she smiled, knowing her mother, Andre, her father, and every child who'd ever struggled was flying with her. And as Richard watched his daughter, full of hope, laughter, and possibility. He understood, at last, that there is no greater wealth than the bravery to heal, the humility to love, and the wisdom to let every butterfly take flight.